Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a story for you that proves even the most ordinary day can turn into an absolute circus. It's about two 12-year-old friends, Charlie and Tim. Now, at 12, you're just old enough to feel independent, taking the school bus by yourself. But you're definitely not old enough to handle the weirdness the world sometimes throws at you. This particular morning started off completely normal. Charlie, in his typical fashion, had already managed to get jam on his shirt. Tim, equally on brand, had left his homework sitting on his desk at home. And to top it all off, the bus was running 5 minutes late. Just another Tuesday. They finally saw the big yellow bus lumbering down the street and climbed aboard, ready for another boring ride to school. But the second their feet hit the metal steps, they knew something was off. It was the driver. He was whistling. And I don't mean a quiet, happy little tune. No, this was a full-blown performance. It was a loud, dramatic, high-pitched whistle that was so intense it sounded like a tea kettle and a parrot were locked in a fierce musical battle. It filled the entire bus, bouncing off the windows and making everyone's teeth vibrate. Charlie and Tim exchanged a look. This was new, and it just kept going. Every single time the bus pulled over to pick up more kids, the driver would switch to a new song, as if he had a whole set list planned. One stop, it was a surprisingly powerful rendition of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. The next, it was a tune that sounded vaguely like the national anthem, but it could have just as easily been a cat sneezing in perfect rhythm. It was impossible to tell, and frankly, a little concerning. The other passengers were not finding it as amusing as Charlie and Tim initially did. The mood on the bus was starting to shift from confused to genuinely annoyed. An elderly lady sitting near the front, who looked like she'd seen it all, finally gave up and just covered her ears with her morning newspaper. A businessman, trying to take a call, eventually snapped, shouting down the aisle, "Mate, this isn't a concert hall." The craziest part, even the technology seemed to be against him. The automated GPS voice, usually so calm and robotic, sounded like it was on its last nerve. It would say, "In 200 feet, turn left," followed by a short, frustrated-sounding beep, and then an added, "Please stop whistling." It was like the bus itself was begging for mercy. The driver, completely unfazed, just kept on whistling, a cheerful, oblivious maestro of his mobile symphony. Tim, trying to talk over the shrill noise, leaned into Charlie's ear. "If he keeps this up," he yelled, "he's going to blow a hole right through the roof." Charlie couldn't help but giggle. The whole situation was just too ridiculous. He whispered back, a mischievous glint in his eye, "Should we, call for backup?" They both looked at each other and grinned. It was a joke, of course. Mostly. Then Tim, with the kind of brilliant, half-joking logic only a 12-year-old can have, pulled out his phone. He actually dialed 999. Charlie's eyes went wide. Was he really doing this? On the other end, a calm operator answered, "Emergency services. What is the nature of your emergency?" Tim, putting on his most serious, concerned voice, replied, "Yes, hello. We're on a school bus, and our driver will not stop whistling. We think he's dangerous." He paused for dramatic effect. To everyone's ears, Charlie had to bite his lip to keep from bursting out laughing. He couldn't believe Tim had actually done it. They waited, wondering if anything would actually happen. Surely the operator would just tell them off for wasting police time. But, to their absolute astonishment, a few stops later, they saw the flashing blue lights. A police car pulled the bus over. By the time the police officer boarded, the driver hadn't missed a beat. He was still whistling away, but now he had a partner. A pigeon had landed on the open window next to him, and it was chirping along, creating a bizarre but cheerful duet. The officer, a stern-looking man, stepped onto the bus, took one look around at the exasperated passengers, and listened. He stood there for about 10 seconds, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. Finally, he walked up to the driver. "Right?" he said, with a voice that meant business. "That's it, sir." He gestured with his hands as if putting on invisible handcuffs. "You're under musical arrest!" The driver stopped whistling, his eyes wide with surprise. And then something amazing happened. The Indabusta old lady, the businessman, all the students erupted in a massive cheer. It was a wave of pure relief and gratitude. As the officer had a quiet word with the driver, who just looked sheepish, Charlie leaned over to Tim one last time. "You know," he whispered, "next time, let's just walk to school." Tim nodded, a weary but satisfied smile on his face. "Yeah," he agreed. "At least the pigeons on the street don't try to whistle in harmony." And with that, the strange musical journey finally came to an end, leaving them with a story they'd be telling for years. What a wild ride, right? It just goes to show you never know what's going to happen on your morning commute. Have you ever had a crazy bus or train ride? Let me know your story in the comments below. I'd love to read them. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.